Sir, can you see and hear me?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we start this afternoon with FUJ 001555400? Thank you very much. Mr. Sewell, before the break, we were looking at the minutes of a meeting. I'm just going to turn back to those in my own bundle. So we were looking at, an email that was sent from Wendy Warham to the post office on the 7th of January 2009.
Yes.
We're now on the 8th of January 2009. And if we look at the bottom, it's an email from Penny Thomas to Wendy Warham and Steve Denham. You're copied in, and it says, please see email trail. The post office clearly don't want the specific details of this incident included in the witness statement. I will hold off providing the 4 outstanding statements until our review is complete. And then behind that, we can see the discussion that has taken place. Perhaps we can start at the bottom of page 2 into page 3, please. Thank you. So we have an email at the very bottom from Rob Wilson to Rob Wilson from Dave Posnett. And that says, pardon?
The other way around, isn't it?
Yes, if we scroll down, there, it's to Rob Wilson from Dave Posnett.
Yeah, okay.
He says, in relation to the standard witness statement Fujitsu provide, number 1, the following addition has been inserted. The addition seems okay. It's just another check that Fujitsu conduct to ensure the security incident doesn't occur again. And then it quotes the proposed addition to the witness statement that simply says Windows events generated by the counters within the branch / time frame in question are checked to ensure the counters were functioning correctly. And then it says as follows. The following additional paragraphs have been inserted. I personally do not see the need for these if there are no problems identified with the data relating to the case in question. Why inform anyone about a problem we've had within the network, but possibly only at one branch, if it bears no relation or relevance? And the proposed passages for insertion in the witness statement read as follows. They were to say, in December 2007, an occurrence was reported in one office where a stock unit rollover coincided with the end-of-day process running. This led to a previously unseen database lock where an administrative balancing transaction failed to be written to the local message store database. This generated a generic and non-specific software error event which went unnoticed in the monitoring of events. A financial imbalance was evident and was subject to investigation by Fujitsu's Service Support Centre and Post Office Limited. The financial imbalance has been resolved. A software correction was applied across the estate in early November 2008 to ensure that any such event generated would be monitored. Testing of the correction has established that the unmonitored error does not occur elsewhere in the system. So that was the proposed form of words in the statement, which Mr. Posnett is saying he doesn't consider the need for. Is that your reading of that?
Yes, sir.
And it continues, Fujitsu have 4 statements outstanding, and I'll be grateful if you could consider the above, i.e., should they include the above statements from now on? Happy to discuss if need be. And the response is on the previous page from Rob Wilson, the head of criminal law at the post office. He says, Dave, thanks for both of your emails. So far as the addition is concerned, my view is that if we're sure that there are no incidents, then there's nothing undermining that we need to be flagged up to the defence. The incident will have no relevance to our cases, and as such could only lead to fishing expeditions if we added anything into the standard statement. If we look above, we have the email from Dave Posnett to Penny Thomas. He says, Penny, to note emails below, I would say business as usual regarding witness statements, i.e. don't include the 2 additional paragraphs on the last page. If any issues materialise in due course, we can address then. suggests the ARQs for these 4 cases are assessed first. And over the page, please, to the first page. We then have Penny Thomas emailing you that we've seen on the first page saying that the Post Office don't want the details included in the witness statement. Was that something that you recall discussion taking place?
Well, I've read the paperwork, and obviously I've picked up on it through reading the paperwork. Yeah.
But it's not something that stood out at the time?
No.
If we look at FUJ 001222604, we see the amendments to the statement that Penny Thomas proposed. And if we go to page 7, please. We can see that that's the form of words that she was proposing that generated that email chain that we've just been looking at. It seems as though those proposals were rejected. Are you able to offer a view as to whether you think that they were even sufficient in themselves? In other words, referring only to the December 2007 occurrence rather than the wider issues that we were discussing this morning?
I don't know, really. They're relevant to the Post Office. They issued that statement, and the legal people absorbed it and said they're okay with it.
But as somebody who was managing Penny Thomas, the author of this statement, we know that that wasn't included. But even if it were included, do you think that that would have adequately addressed all of the problems that we've been discussing today?
I don't know.
The wider issues with, for example, sub-postmasters not being aware of a potential problem that causes an imbalance.
Well, that particular problem was resolved.
Yes, but do you think the potential for that to occur and the underlying code issues, for example, do you think that those should have been brought to people's attention, defendants in criminal proceedings?
Then or now?
Do you think now they should have?
Maybe, yes.
Yes. And reflecting on that, do you think that even this proposed changed form of words would have been sufficient to have reflected those wider issues?
I don't know. I think it's... I really didn't have an opinion at the time. I was happy to go with the flow that was generally released.
Can we please look at FUJ 001555402? On the same day, we're sticking with the 8th of January 2009. There seems to have been another meeting. We have the bottom email from Penny Thomas, and a recipient. And she says, as a result of our meeting today, the following actions have been agreed. We will event check all transaction data supplied to the Post Office where that data falls between May 2007 and November 2008. So there's a narrow limitation in the time period for which the data is being selected.
That was the time, that was the when the events were potentially had an error in them. That's when the correction was corrected in November and was found in May.
But you'll recall from earlier this morning discussion earlier on about looking at a much wider period.
I don't know when that was stopped.
Yes, you don't know when that was stopped, but it seems January 2009 the decision is taken to only look at a narrow period of time.
Yes.
The check will focus on events where the CABS process has produced a lock from 7 to 7:10 local time. So again, quite narrow in the time period also that they're looking, not just by date, but also by time of event.
It might have been because that was when the end of day process was run.
Absolutely. So it was only looking at that end of day process rather than any other triggers for that event or potential triggers.
Looks like it, yes.
Penny to provide a list of 195 outlets with a time frame, Alan to provide query, Gerald to run the events check through the database, Steve Denham is to be advised the number of residual events, and we'll discuss with Mick Peach, residual events to be reviewed. Penny or Cover will check ARQ data retained in the audit room or retrieve message stores as required. Pete to update security incident register. Is that, Pete, a reference to you?
I think it is, yes.
Can you assist us with what the security incident register was?
Really a spreadsheet with the record of incidents, security incidents.
Can we now, our final document is FUJ 0015541. This is an email that we saw yesterday. It's 4th of February 2009 from Penny Thomas to Dave Posnett at the post office. You are sent a copy of the email shortly after it's, in fact, the same minute as it's sent, forwarded for your information. And I'm just going to read that. It says, "We're pleased to advise that our analysis covering the 1st of May 2007 to the 30th of November 2008 has been completed. The events log have been checked for all data provided to the post office as a result of the 195 ARQs which fall within the time frame." So it seems as though they checked 195 ARQs.
Yes.
A total of 27 instances of concern were identified. All instances have been fully analysed, and we can confirm that the locking was caused by contention between the end-of-day process and a riposte checkpoint being written. No transactions or balancing activities carried out at the branches were affected. A change proposal has been raised to automate the event checking process and is being progressed. The standard witness statement has been reviewed and is attached. No reference has been made to the locking issue, but minor revisions have been made. So in essence, the part that the post office earlier rejected in that email chain we saw wasn't ultimately included.
Yes, looks like it, yes.
The now 3 outstanding witness statements will be provided as soon as possible. Please respond or call me if you have any questions. That seems to be the end of the matter, drawing to a close the issue that we've been looking at.
Yes, it does.
Do you think that the issue was adequately addressed in the sense that we heard from the beginning of today possibility for silent errors occurring that may affect transactions that weren't known to sub-postmasters? Do you think that, as at 4th of February 2009, sufficient had been done within Fujitsu?
At the time, yes.
And now?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
And do you have any reflections on that?
No, not really. It's such a long time ago for me.
Thank you. I only have one very brief topic raised by a core participant, and that relates to paragraph 14 of your witness statement. Perhaps we can go to that. WITN 097110100. It's paragraph 14, page 5. Thank you. There's just a reference there. It says that I had contact with Sue Lothar, the Post Office Security Manager. I had detailed knowledge of the Horizon project, including the relevant people, their roles, and when to find information, and so would attend security meetings between managers, Bill Mitchell, later Brian Pinder, in the Post Office account security team and the it says POL security team on a monthly basis to provide support. Are you able to assist us? Was that the Post Office security team or was it the Post Office investigations team?
It was the Post Office security team.
And who do you recall attending those meetings?
Sue Lowther. She was the Post Office manager, security manager. I can't remember anyone else.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sewell. Sir, there are questions from Ms. Patrick and Ms. Page, and I believe that is all. I think we're going to hear from Ms. Page first.
Very well, thank you.
Mr. Sewell, I understand from your evidence earlier, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you say you were not aware that sub-postmasters were saying that Horizon was causing balancing problems.
I was not aware.
Can we go, please, to poll 0011 8221. It's a long document, and if we could go to page 220, please. This document is dated the 4th of July 2003, and we can see that it's to someone called Kevin Parkin, and it's from someone called Reg Barton, but it's copied to you. Do you see that, Peter Sewell?
Yes, I do.
This relates to the case of Cleveley's, which this inquiry has heard a bit about. And it says, I understand from Denise that Paul have been raising some questions about Cleveley's SPSO, where I understand that the postmaster is in possession of 2 sets of Horizon equipment dating back since 2001, which she maintains were responsible for poor balancing. And if we go down a little bit, it says in the paragraph which begins I have, which is towards the bottom of the screen, I have copied this to Peter Sewell, our security manager, for his awareness. Now, that tells us that right from 2003, you were aware of sub-postmasters saying that Horizon equipment was responsible for problems with balancing.
That was 2003.
Well, that was just at the start, wasn't it? And it carried on from there, didn't it?
I wasn't security manager either, 2003.
Well, it's being sent to you as security manager. Whether or not that was your correct title at that time, you were being put on notice, were you not, that a sub-postmaster was complaining that Horizon equipment was causing misbalancing?
Well, I can read it, and it says that, yes. But I don't remember it, so it's too long ago.
Thank you. That document can come down. The Castleton email that was put on screen just before lunch. Let's consider a different aspect of it, please. You've been at pains to tell us that you were not involved in the technical detail of what your team did, and instead you wished us to focus on the fact that you were their manager.
Right.
Team meetings, appraisals, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Now, providing witness statements was part of their job, wasn't it? And you knew that.
Yes.
And therefore, giving evidence in court proceedings would potentially be part of their job, would it not?
Yes, when necessary, yes.
And so it might be more rare and a more difficult part of their job, but still something anticipated, expected, something you knew you would have to be responsible for managing them to do.
I guess so. I'm not sure I was that committed to it, but I knew what they were doing. I knew where they were going.
All right. Well, let's have a look at the email chain again. FUJ 0015 4750. Your email to Mr. Dunks. See you in court then. Fetter Lane is where they used to hang people out to dry. I don't suppose that type of thing happens anymore, though. That Castleton is a nasty chap and will be out to rubbish the FJ name. It's up to you to maintain absolute strength and integrity, no matter what the prosecution throw at you. We will all be behind you, hoping you come through unscathed. Bless you. And let's just have a look at his reply as well, please. Thank you for those very kind and encouraging words. I had to pause halfway through reading it to wipe away a small tear, ... Bless you all, ... Thank you, that can come down. Was this your pep talk to your team member that you were managing before he had to go and give evidence?
No, it wasn't a pep talk, no.
You're saying, don't worry, we're all behind you, aren't you?
That's what it says.
And what you say to reassure him is, don't worry, he's a nasty man. How did you form that opinion, Mr. Sewell?
I don't know. I don't know why I wrote it. I apologise.
What was being said within Fujitsu that allowed you to form the opinion that he was a nasty man?
Nothing, I don't think.
Nothing?
I'm not aware of anything. No.
You made that up off the top of your head?
In a way, I think yes.
And why would you do that, Mr. Sewell?
I don't know.
Is that the opinion that you formed of all sub-postmasters who took issue with what Post Office said in the courts?
Absolutely not.
You were egging Mr. Dunks on, weren't you? Urging him to go into battle with Mr. Castleton,
I don't
weren't
know
you?
what it was written for now. I don't know.
You will know by now that Mr. Castleton was indeed hung out to dry.
I know a lot more about it now than I did, yes.
Knowing what you know about him being hung out to dry, and the way that you urged Mr. Dunks to go into battle with him, is that the right attitude for someone to take into court when they're about to give evidence in a case with serious implications for someone?
No.
And yet that was the attitude that your management style and your email fostered and encouraged, isn't it?
It suggests that way, yes. I don't know why I wrote it.
Did you say similar things to Mr. Dunks before he gave evidence against Seema Misra?
Absolutely not.
Why do you say absolutely not?
I can't even believe that that was written, so no more.
Well, if you can't believe that you wrote that and clearly you did, is it not entirely possible that you said similar things before he gave evidence against Mrs. Misra?
No,
No?
I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't.
And why are we to believe that, Mr. Sewell?
That's what I'm saying to you.
The attitude towards sub-postmasters that you encouraged in your team must have been one they carried into court whenever they gave evidence against sub-postmasters. Is that right?
I don't believe so.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Patrick?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Sewell.
Good afternoon.
My name's Miss Patrick. I ask questions for a number of sub-postmasters who were convicted and have since had their convictions overturned.
Right.
I only want to ask you a few questions about one topic. This morning you told the inquiry that you'd had limited input into the substantive content of witness statements provided by Fujitsu employees, including those people you managed. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I want to look at one document. FUJ 00225644. And if we could focus on the email at the bottom of the page, on page 1, please. Can you see that then, Mr. Sewell?
Yes.
And we see that this is a message from Phil Budd, and it's dated the 18th of August 2009, and it concerns Porters Avenue Post Office. Now, Porters Avenue is a branch that was run by Jerry Hosey, who is a sub-postmaster that we represent. Mr. Hosey was prosecuted and convicted, and in November 2010, he was sentenced to 21 months in prison. His conviction was overturned in October 2021, 11 years later. So that's a little bit of context. Now, if we read what Mr. Budd is saying first together. Morning, Andy. That court case reared its head again a few weeks ago. You remember I analysed a couple of counters back in July 07. Then you got me to sign a new witness statement in June 08. Well, they came back again and wanted me to sign another one. Just a single paragraph to say that the counters were in full working order and would not cause a discrepancy. I was not happy with the implications of full working order since I did not perform test transactions on the counters. So I provided a new paragraph to reiterate my previous statement that the files thereon were correct and that counters should be expected to perform as required. The reason for my email, now the defence are hiring an expert to analyse the equipment, I just wanted to make sure POA are not solely relying on my analysis. I assume we've supplied evidence of the transactions going through and the system's working correctly. I'm just trying to reduce the stress I feel whenever this pops back into my head. So that's what he is saying. Now, Phil Budd, do you recall who Phil Budd was?
No.
If we scroll back down onto page 2 of that document, we might be able to refresh your memory. If we look at the very top, we'll see his email signature. There you go, Phil Budd, RMGA Development Systems Engineer. Does that help?
No, don't recall the name at all.
Okay, but in this message, Mr. Budd, he's expressing a reluctance about the evidence he's given and will have to give in court, isn't he?
Yes.
Right. Can we scroll back to the top of page 1, please? And if we can highlight the top of page 1, I'd be grateful. And we see here there's a reply from you, isn't there, Mr. Sewell?
To Andy Dunks, yes.
And it's copied to Mr. Budd, isn't it?
Yes.
And you say, Phil, your statement is fine, and all you can actually say. If they stump up the cash, the counter equipment won't be much use, as the 42 days retainer of the message store is long gone and will be endorsed by Gareth, Pete. You were signing off what Mr. Budd had already said in evidence, weren't you?
I was trying to reply to him.
You were giving him assurance that it was appropriate for him to go on and give evidence, weren't you?
That's all I knew, that the message store would run.
And in fact, what you were doing was commenting on a line that was being taken by the defence in evidence in this case, weren't you?
I don't know about that.
And here, I think you were suggesting, in fact, that Mr. Jenkins, if it was necessary, then he would be able to give evidence to provide a fuller picture. Is that fair?
No, I think I was asking that Gareth would underline what I was saying, so I was correct.
That he would endorse
What I was saying,
what you were saying.
yes.
Thank you. I don't think I have any further questions for you, Mr. Sewell.
Is that it?
That is, yes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sewell, for coming to give evidence today. We've got one more witness, Mr. Blake.
We do say yes. Could we take our mid-afternoon break now, so 15 minutes, so that arrangements can be put in place for Miss Munro to take her place in the room? So that would be 2:45.
Certainly. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you very much.
May we please call Miss Munro?
I do solemnly,
I do solemnly,
sincerely and truly
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the
and
truth.
nothing but the truth.
Could you confirm your full name, please, Miss Munro?
Yep, Donna Maria Munro.
Thank you for coming to the inquiry to assist it in its work. As you know, I will be asking you questions on behalf of the inquiry. You should have in front of you a hard copy of a witness statement in your name in a bundle at tab A1, and it is dated the 29th of December 2023. Do you have that?
I do.
If you could turn to page 12 of that, please.
Yep.
Do you have a copy with a visible signature?
I do, yes.
Is that your signature?
It is.
Are the contents of your statement true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
They are.
For the purposes of the transcript, the reference for Ms. Munro's statement is WITN 068-50100. I will not be asking you about every aspect of the statement that you have provided, which will be published on the inquiry's website in due course. I will instead be asking about certain specific issues which are addressed in them.
Okay.
Based on the documents you have seen, is it right that you think you must have started working for Fujitsu Services Limited by at least December 2000?
Yes, that's correct.
And your first role with Fujitsu was as a technician in the Royal Mail Group account team of the Systems Management Centre, is that right?
That's correct.
You were part of the team that was responsible for monitoring the rollout of the Horizon system through the management of calls from post office branches in relation to the remote upgrades deployed to Horizon counters, is that right?
That's correct.
And that involved ensuring that Horizon counters in specific offices were deployed or rolled back on time.
Yes.
You say at paragraph 6 of your statement that if any issue arose, you would refer to a known error log, the software support centre, or the management systems support to resolve the issue.
Yes.
Do you recall the kind of issues which were being reported to you at this time?
I don't recall the detail of the issues, no. Specifically, I remember when we were doing the rollouts that if we hadn't got every counter in an office with the software upgrade, it had to all be rolled back before their start of business day the following morning. And then it was general event monitoring, so the events that are coming back from the counters and things like that.
If you can just keep your voice up a little bit so that the transcriber can hear you.
Okay.
Is it right that you recall the architects of the Horizon system, Ian Bowen and Glenn Stevens, assisting with the team's technical knowledge and understanding of the solutions used for issues raised?
Yes, I'm not sure that they were specifically the architects of the Horizon system, but as part of it. So not the whole system.
I'm taking that wording from your statement.
Yeah.
You mean that part of the system?
That they were architects of part of the system, not the whole system.
You became a team leader in the Systems Management Centre, is that right?
That's correct.
And then left the RMG account team to support different projects across the Fujitsu business.
Yes.
In June 2009, you were offered the role of Security Operations Manager in Fujitsu's Post Office account team, is that right?
That's correct.
You say at paragraph 9 of your statement that you did not have much experience within security at the start of your role, and you raised this with the Post Office account manager, Peter Thompson, is that right?
That's correct.
And he and the Chief Information Security Officer offered support throughout your role.
They did, yeah.
You say in your statement that the Chief Information Security Officer role was held by a number of individuals across the time you were with the Post Office account, including Tom Lillywhite, Howard Pritchard and Brett Warren. Is
Yes.
that right? You say that on joining the Post Office account, your main focus was on gaining an understanding of how the teams worked.
Yep, that's correct.
And you reviewed a number of services provided by the security team, is that right?
I did.
And that included reconciliation services. Can you explain, please, what reconciliation services were?
That's where they take the reports from overnight where transactions haven't settled correctly, and they reconcile against the reports to the different reports to which transactions were correct or incorrect and needed additional work.
Were you ever involved in the work of the reconciliation services team as opposed to reviewing the service?
No.
One aspect of the security team's work was the litigation support service, which was offered to the Post Office, wasn't it?
Correct.
You say at paragraph 13 of your statement that you were also responsible for the management of the security team, including sickness, leave, and performance monitoring and workload distributions.
Correct.
You say at paragraph 14 of your statement that in your day-to-day work you reported directly to Peter Thompson. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you also maintained a working relationship with the CISO and would reach out to him with questions relating to the more technical and security matters of the work of the security team.
Yes.
From 2012, your focus moved to supporting the payment card industry data security standards compliance programme. Is that right?
That is correct.
Although you say you still had oversight of the security team at that time.
Yes.
Is it right that you left Fujitsu in 2015?
That's correct.
When you were security operations manager, you line managed Penny Thomas, is that right?
That's correct.
You describe her at paragraph 17 of your statement as the subject matter expert responsible for the management and carrying out of the extraction of audit data.
Yes.
She was responsible for the provision of the litigation support service and supported the reconciliation service, is that right?
She did.
Penny Thomas was supported in this role by Andy Dunks when you joined the Post Office account, is that right?
That's correct.
And Rajbinder Baines joined the team a few months later.
She did, yes.
You say in your statement she was supported as and when necessary, that is Penny Thomas, by the Software Support Centre, including Anne Chambers, as well as by Gareth Jenkins, is that
Yes.
right? You say at paragraph 21 of your statement that you believe Gareth Jenkins was a senior solution architect for the Horizon system, and you say he assisted Penny Thomas in understanding the ARQ data she retrieved as part of the litigation support service. Is that right?
Correct.
You say you had fairly limited dealings with Gareth Jenkins and that you saw him on rare occasion, briefly saying hello around the office. Is that right?
That's correct.
But your understanding from these limited dealings was that he was, on occasion, called as an expert witness in prosecutions conducted by the Post Office.
Yes.
You say at paragraph 20 of your statement that it was Penny Thomas who provided training to Andy Dunks and Rajbinder Baines, with training in all areas of the litigation support service and reconciliation service. Is that right?
Yes.
And the aim of this was that the litigation support service and reconciliation service would continue to function even if a member of the team was absent.
Yes.
Do you mean by this that absent Penny Thomas passing on her knowledge to others, the litigation support service and reconciliation service would struggle to function?
Sorry, can you reword that for me?
If Penny Thomas was the one who was not there, without her passing on her knowledge, is what you're saying, that those services would have struggled to function.
Yes.
In terms of the work of the team extracting ARQ data, you deal with this at paragraph 25 of your statement. Could we have that on screen, please? It is page 8 of WITN 068-50100. Of the ARQ extraction work, you say this: at a high level, I was aware of the process the team carried out to extract ARQ data. The team worked in a secure room to access the audit servers via the audit workstation and would extract the ARQ data requested by Pol. If required, the team would produce a corresponding witness statement in respect of how the ARQ data was gathered. The team were responsible for providing the ARQ data and witness statements to Pol. If required, they could also be asked to present this evidence at court. I understood that the extraction of ARQ data was a contractual requirement of Fujitsu's relationship with Pol. Is it right that you yourself did not have any role in the extraction of ARQ data?
That's correct.
You deal with your line management relationship with Penny Thomas at paragraph 19 of your statement. Could we have that on screen, please? It's page 6. And you say this: in the day-to-day performance of her role, Penny Thomas reported to the PO account manager and the CISO rather than to me. As her line manager, I was copied into some of Penny Thomas's email correspondence so that I could understand and manage the resourcing levels and capacity of the team. Penny Thomas also liaised directly with Pol in the performance of her role as their direct point of contact for the litigation support service. From memory and review of the documentation, Penny Thomas would occasionally copy me into email correspondence with Pol so that I had visibility of her capacity. Penny Thomas would only reach out to me for assistance in relation to the litigation support service for things like arranging cover when she was away, as I managed the team workloads. I do not recall Penny Thomas raising concerns relating to the service itself, as these would normally be raised with the PO account manager or CISO. I did not offer subject matter support to the litigation support service. You also say at paragraph 26 of your statement that you had no role in the provision of witness statements or the legal proceedings which followed the extraction of ARQ data.
Correct.
Is it right that your evidence is that where issues related to litigation support needed to be escalated, they were escalated to the Post Office account manager and the Chief Information Security Officer?
That's correct.
Can we have on screen, please, FUJ 00172047? This is an email chain from June 2010. If we can go, please, to page 5 of this document, we can see the first email in the chain, which is dated the 23rd of June 2010. We may have different page numbering by the looks of things at page 5. Apologies, that's entirely my fault. The reference, if we can try that again, is FUJ 000-97047. No, that's it. We've got there. Towards the bottom. That's the page we're after. The email at the bottom there, from Penny Thomas, 23rd of June 2010. This is an email from Penny Thomas to Graham Welsh and to you, as well as Peter Thompson. It is copied to Gareth Jenkins and Alan Holmes. Peter Thompson, who you say was the post office account manager at the time, is that right?
That's correct.
The subject is duplication of transaction records on ARQ returns. And Ms. Thomas attaches an initial report on the problem. You say in your statement at paragraph 34 that this is when you were first notified of the issue, is that right?
That's correct.
You are a recipient of the next email in the chain as well, which appears on the previous page, page 4. That is also from Penny Thomas and provides an update to her note sent the day before. It provides some analysis showing that there were 112 ARQs affected by the issue in question, and there is a breakdown of that figure. And Ms. Thomas goes on to say that audit development were currently working on a fix which is expected to be available Tuesday, 29th of June. She then sets out a proposed explanation for the post office which had been provided by Gareth Jenkins. And his proposed explanation was this: with horizon counters, the mechanism by which data is audited has always worked on the principle that it is acceptable to audit the same data more than once, in particular if in doubt as to whether or not it has been previously audited successfully. The mechanism used on Horizon to retrieve the data took this into account and only presented one instance of such duplicate data in the ARQ extracts. However, it has recently been noticed that the HNGX retrieval mechanism does not remove such duplicates, and a quick scan of the ARQs provided to Post Office Limited since the change to the new system indicates that about 35% of the ARQs might contain some duplicate data. A peak has been raised to remove such duplicate data in the future. However, until the fix is developed, tested and deployed, there is a possibility that data is duplicated. The reliable way to identify a duplicate transaction is to use the NUM attribute that is used to generate the unique sequence numbers. Unfortunately, this attribute is not currently included in the Excel version of the ARQ data that has been passed to Post Office Limited in the past. This will be included in all future ARQs until the problem is fixed. Meanwhile, all that can be done on existing ARQs is look for transactions that appear to be duplicates. Note that we have identified a scenario with postal services transactions where multiple identical mail items are accepted, i.e. the quantity button is set to greater than 1, but postage labels are printed for each individual item. This results in separate transactions being generated for each item, which are identical in the ARQ extracts. There is another minor difference in the raw data apart from the NUM attribute, but this different attribute is not currently included in the ARQ extract. Do you recall this issue being raised with you now?
Now I recall the issue, since I've referred to the documentation, yes.
Could we have on screen, please, FUJ 000-97036? This is another email chain from June 2010. You are copied into one email, which forwards on to you 2 further emails. Could we go, please, to page 4 of the document? Here we have an email from Penny Thomas to Graham Welsh, which is copied to you. The email is dated the 23rd of June 2010, and the subject is duplication of transaction records. In it, Ms. Thomas asks whether Mr. Welsh can spare a few minutes to discuss the issue. The first of the two emails forwarded to you is on page 5 of this document. Could we go over the page, please? It is an email from earlier in the day on the 23rd of June 2010 from Penny Thomas to Pat Lywood, who appears from the emails on the page before to have been a service implementation manager. Do you remember her now?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas says this: "Hi Pat, we have a very significant problem which has been recorded in Peak PC 02000468. In a nutshell, the HNGX application is not removing duplicate transactions, which may have been recorded twice on the audit server, and they are appearing in the ARQ returns. For the old Horizon application, Riposte automatically removed duplicate entries. An initial analysis shows that 1/3 of all ARQ returns since the new application has been in play have duplicated transactions. Also, we have a peak which would highlight any duplication of records. This obviously isn't happening now." The reply from Pat Lywood is on the previous page. Page 4, please. Starting about halfway down that page. "Penny, I will add to CS prayers that your chances of getting it fixed before R2 is deployed are not good. Can I suggest that you explain the urgency to Graham and get him to raise it at management prayers? Can you also add a business impact to the peak using the impact button? Adam, please can you get your guys to take a look at this and let me know where the fix might be? Cheers, Pat." So Ms. Thomas was, if we can scroll up please to the top of the page. Ms. Thomas was bringing you into the loop, copying you in here, into her email to Graham, in her email to Graham Welsh, sending on those two previous emails. This was potentially a very significant problem, wasn't it?
Yes.
On its face, there might be duplicate entries on ARQ spreadsheets which had been provided to the post office.
Correct.
And at least some of those ARQs were for use in court.
I believe so.
Would you have discussed the substance of this issue with Ms. Thomas?
No,
Why not?
because she would have already taken it up to the relevant senior management.
Do you recall being concerned about this issue at the time?
Yeah, I think we were all concerned about the issue, hence why Penny raised it as urgent. But I don't recall any detail around the issue in depth.
Can we have on screen, please, FUJ 001 22903? This is an email chain from July 2010. The top email is from Penny Thomas to you among another number of other recipients, including Graham Welsh, Gareth Jenkins, and Tom Lillywhite. Mr. Lillywhite was, I think you have said, the Chief Information Security Officer.
He was.
It is dated the 7th of July 2010. Ms. Thomas says this, forwarding on the email chain below. Please see response from Paul. The suggestion here is that Gareth completes all witness statements. This doesn't fit into the current SLA and really isn't feasible as far as I can see. Just pausing there, SLA, what does that stand for?
Service level agreement.
I attach a standard witness statement with modifications for duplicate transactions, which Gareth has already reviewed. Guy, I'm not sure where you are working from today. Could you fit in a conference call at any time today? Kind regards, Penny. The email she was forwarding Scrolling down, please, was from Mark Dinsdale from the Post Office, 7th of July 2010. It says this: Penny, as discussed, our legal team in principle are happy with this and have agreed that if yourselves provide a witness statement covering your explanation below and additionally the following points, then the workaround gets the green light. Juliet suggested the additional points to cover include what are we doing about it and over what period did this anomaly occur, i.e. upon migration to HNGX. She also suggested that the witness statement be completed by Gareth Jenkins, your expert witness. Ms. Thomas attached a standard witness statement which had been modified for duplicate transactions, for the duplicate transactions issue. Do you recall there being a standard Fujitsu witness statement which was used by litigation support?
I recall they had a template, yes.
Could we have on screen, please, the statement which was attached to Ms. Thomas's email? It's FUJ 001 22904. The statement is in the name of Penelope Ann Thomas. It is a standard statement and therefore undated. The introductory paragraph says this: I have been employed by Fujitsu Services, Post Office account, formerly ICL Pathway Limited, since 20th of January 2004, as an information technology security analyst responsible for audit data extractions and IT security. I have working knowledge of the computer system known as Horizon, which is a computerized accounting system used by Post Office Limited. I am authorized by Fujitsu Services to undertake extractions of audit archive data and to obtain information regarding system transactions recorded on the Horizon system. There then follows an overview of the Horizon system. Scrolling down slowly, please. And going over 2 pages to page 3. There is a paragraph dealing with audit information. An audit of all information handled by the TMS is taken daily by copying all new messages to archive media. This creates a record of all completed outlet transaction details, including its origin, outlet encounter, when it happened, who caused it to happen, and the outcome. The TMS journal is maintained at each of the Fujitsu Services data center sites and is created by securely replicating all completed transaction records that occurred in every outlet. They therefore provide the ability to compare the audit track record of the same transaction recorded in 2 places to verify that systems were operating correctly. Records of all transactions are written to audit archive media. We can see 3 new paragraphs, scrolling down a little, please, dealing with the duplicate transactions issue, which read as follows. With Horizon counters, the mechanism by which data is audited has always worked on the principle that it is acceptable to audit the same data more than once, in particular if in doubt as to whether or not it has been previously audited successfully. The mechanism used on Horizon to retrieve the data took this into account and only presented 1 instance of such duplicate data in the ARQ extracts. In January 2010, a new HNGX application was introduced to filter transaction records for presentation to Post Office Limited. It has recently been noticed in this HNGX retrieval mechanism does not remove such duplicates. An enhancement to the extraction toolset will be developed, tested and deployed, and will remove such duplicate data in the future. However, until this enhancement is deployed, there is a possibility that data is duplicated. The reliable way to identify a duplicate transaction is to use the NUM attribute that is used to generate the unique sequence numbers. This will be included in all future transaction record returns until the retrieval mechanism is enhanced. A semi-automated process to copy the returned data and then to identify and remove any duplicated records which may be present from this copy by using the NUM attribute has been agreed with Post Office Limited for use in the interim period. It is emphasised that the duplication of audited records has not in any way affected actual physical transactions recorded on any counter at any outlet. The duplication of records has occurred during the auditing process when records were in the process of being recorded purely for audit purposes from the correspondence servers to the audit servers. Then going please to page 7 of this document. The penultimate paragraph on this page says this: there is no reason to believe that the information in this statement is inaccurate because of the improper use of the system. To the best of my knowledge and belief, at all material times the system was operating properly, or if not, in any respect in which it was not operating properly or was out of operation was not such as to affect the information held within it. This draft standard witness statement was circulated on the 7th of July 2010, as we've just seen from the relevant emails. Could we have on screen, please, FUJ 00225719? Before we look through this document here, do you remember receiving and reading the draft statement circulated by Ms. Thomas with that proposed wording?
No, I don't recall receiving or reading it.
Would you, having seen that email chain, have read the statement that was attached to the email which you were copied into?
I would if it was sent to me direct, not as a copy.
Starting about halfway down the page here is an email from Penny Thomas dated the 8th of September 2010 to Andy Dunks, copied to you. The subject line is Kirkerswold, ARQ PO 48 to PO 58. And it reads as follows: Andy, as you know, these returns are reruns of work you have already completed. 3 out of the 12 of your returns contained duplicate transactions. All, 48 to 59, need to be represented on one disk. They are due in court on the 20th of September. We have to get them to Salford, and they in turn have to relay to the investigator, so we need to get them in the post today. In order to get these out as quickly as possible, I asked Raj to rerun them for you. If you really are unhappy to take ownership of the work she has completed on your behalf, please could you rerun them yourself? Raj, can you show the fast ALQ process, which is really not onerous at all? You will then need to update your witness statement. The disk and statement need to be in the post today, please. Kind regards, Penny. Going back, please, to the start of this email chain, which is on page 2 of the document. This is an email dated the 6th of September 2010 from Ms. Baines to Mr. Dunks, copied to Penny Thomas. So you're not copied on this email, but it is forwarded on to you. And it says this: Hi Andy, just spoken to Maureen, and the data for Kirkerswold needs to be resent as this had duplicated data. I have reran the reports for you, so please can you check and get these sent to Pol. Also, I understand that these also require the witness statements as well, so please can you get this done, as we will need to get this out ASAP, as this will be going to court on the 20th of September. Also, do you know where the PGP files were for the set of reports that you produced originally, as they need to be copied over to the NAS, and we cannot locate them on the D drive? Could these be on your desktop? Many thanks, Raj. So it appears that an ARQ return that contained duplicated data in September 2010 and Miss Baines was asking Mr. Dunks to check it. Is that a fair reading of that email?
Yeah, she was asking him to check what she had retrieved and prepare it ready to be sent off, yes.
Going to the top of the page, please. There is an email from Ms. Baines which says this: Penny, Andy has checked the information on the disk, but with regards to the witness statement mentioned that I would need to compile this as I have ran the retrievals off. Please advise whether I would need to do this. And just scrolling up a little, we can see that this email was sent on the 7th of September 2010. Going up further to the page to the email you were copied into, in that email that you're copied into, Ms. Thomas was effectively saying, it seems, that it should be Mr. Dunks who provided the witness statement and not Miss Baines.
Correct.
Is that right? Why do you think you were copied into this email?
Because I was the line manager of Mr. Dunks and Raj.
And so you were copied in respect of the allocation of the work, or
Of the work.
for what reason?
So, if I recall correctly, it's in the allocation of work to make sure that the work could be done in the timescales, and also in concerns around Mr. Dunks not wanting to pull off the work, do the work that was requested.
In general terms, is it right that it was either Ms. Thomas or Mr. Dunks who provided witness statements when they were needed for court?
That's correct.
Could we have on screen, please, FUJ 001 54918? This is an email from Penny Thomas to Tom Lillywhite and to you, dated the 4th of August 2010. It simply says, "We are back in business," ! And forwards on the email from Penny Thomas to Mark Dinsdale below. That's Mark Dinsdale of the Post Office. And that email of the 4th of August says, "Mark, I'm pleased to report that following the deployment of R2, we have retrieved a selection of transaction records where duplicate transactions were previously identified. These records have been checked and we can confirm duplicates are not now present. We will start retrieving records for ARQ requests and will do so in accordance with your priorities." Can you help with what Ms. Thomas meant by being back in business?
We stopped retrieving the ARQ requests while we were waiting for the fix to go in for the duplicate transactions.
Could we have on screen, please, FUJ 001 22961? This is an email chain from September 2010, starting with the email about halfway down the page. This is from Penny Thomas to Andy Dunks and is dated the 10th of September 2010. The subject is the Crown and Wendy Buffery. It says this: "Andy, I have prepared a witness statement for you. Please read it through to make sure it's correct," all in capitals. "It's saved in your witness statement WS drive. I will download the transaction records for you." You are not copied into this email, but you were brought into the loop on this case earlier in the chain by Ms. Thomas. We can see this over the page, please, the second email down. Penny Thomas to Andy Dunks, copied to you, 10th of September. And it says, "Hi Andy, see mail string. Could you please represent the ARQs and provide a covering statement today? If so, I'll confirm to Pol. I'll let you have a copy of my statement." Again, can you help with why you were being copied in?
Just from a management perspective, to awareness of what work Andy needed to do so that he wasn't taken off to do something else.
We have the draft statement which Ms Thomas sent to Mr Dunks. Could we have that on screen, please? It's FUJ 001 22958. On the face of the first page, it appears similar to the standard statement we looked at earlier, doesn't it?
It does.
But looking through this statement, and if we can just scroll down page 1, and page 2, and page 3, stopping there, please. We see the paragraph on archive media there. And we don't see the draft paragraphs which were in the July 2010 proposed statement that Penny Thomas was circulating. Do you remember the 3 paragraphs which were underlined in her July draft relating to the duplicate transactions issue? Obviously, events had moved on by this point, but it doesn't appear, does there, to be a reference here to that duplicate transactions issue having occurred. Is that right? Just
That's correct.
Scrolling down if you need to look. And then at the bottom of page 3, we have, when information relating to individual transactions is requested, the data is extracted from the audit archive media via the audit workstations. Information is presented in exactly the same way as the data held in the archive, although it can be filtered depending upon the type of information requested. The integrity of data retrieved for audit purposes is guaranteed at all times, from the point of gathering, storage, and retrieval to subsequent dispatch to the requester. Controls have been established that provide assurances to Post Office internal audit that this integrity is maintained. Going over the page, please. And then during audit data extractions, the following controls apply. And then there are a number of controls that are listed there. There's no mention in that paragraph either of any past issues with duplication of transactions in the ARQ data, is there?
No.
And going over to page 5, the ARQs in the specific case are addressed. Scrolling down. And then over the page to page 6, please. Going down to the bottom, please, the penultimate paragraph. We have the paragraph, "There is no reason to believe that the system in this statement is inaccurate because of the improper use of the system. To the best of my knowledge and belief, at all material times the system was operating properly, or if not, in any respect in which it was not operating properly or was out of operation was not such as to affect the information held within it." Were you aware at the time that the form of words addressing duplicate transactions had not been included in any form in the standard statement in September 2010?
No, I wasn't.
had you been aware, do you think you might have queried it?
I think I'd have queried why we'd removed it, yes.
Were you aware that a paragraph had been and continued to be included in the standard form statement, saying there was no reason to believe that the information in the statement was inaccurate because of the improper use of the system, and that all material times the system was operating properly, or the rest of that sentence?
My understanding was that that statement is in regards to the audit workstations where they retrieve the data from, rather than the integrity of the Horizon system itself.
I see. Given what you knew at the time about the duplicate transactions issue, would you have had any concern with the paragraph that we've just read out at all, or not, for the reason you've just said?
I wouldn't, for the reason I've just said, because I believe that was related to the workstations how they pulled the data off, rather than the Horizon system itself.
That can come down, thank you. There is just one further topic I would like to ask you about. Could we have on screen, please, POL 000-28838? These are notes from a meeting in 2010, which was held to discuss a bug called the receipts and payments mismatch bug. Gareth Jenkins and John Simpkins are listed as being in attendance. First of all, were you ever told about this issue, the receipts and payments mismatch issue?
No.
The issue is addressed under the heading, "What is the issue?" Discrepancies showing at the Horizon counter disappear when the branch follows certain process steps, but will still show within the back-end branch account. This is currently impacting circa 40 branches since migration onto Horizon Online, with an overall cash value of circa 20,000 loss. This issue will only occur if a branch cancels the completion of the trading period, but within the same session continues to roll into a new balance period. At this time, we have not communicated with branches affected, and we do not believe they are exploiting this bug intentionally. The problem occurs as part of the process when moving discrepancies on the Horizon system into local suspense. Having looked at that description, again, do you recall any knowledge of that issue arising?
I have no knowledge of that issue whatsoever.
You have seen an example of the pro forma statement being submitted in support of the criminal cases in court in September 2010, the one we've just looked at. Does it concern you at all that in the same year this bug was known about by Fujitsu, and yet statements were being submitted to the court saying that at all material times the system was operating properly?
Yes, it does.
When you looked at that paragraph before, you said you took that to be referring to the audit workstations.
Yes.
So just revisiting that, do you think that paragraph could have been read more widely as referring to the Horizon system operating properly?
I think it could have been worded better, yes, to what that paragraph is actually in relation to.
Because on its face, it was saying the system was operating properly.
Yes.
And looking at this, does this cause you concern, knowing that was in the witness statement?
Yes.
Going please to page 3 of this document, the solutions being considered were set out. And looking at solution 1, please. Alter the Horizon branch figure at the counter to show the discrepancy. Fujitsu would have to manually write an entry value to the local branch account. Impact. When the branch comes to complete next trading period, they would have a discrepancy, which they would have to bring to account. Risk. This has significant data integrity concerns and could lead to questions of tampering with the branch system and could generate questions around how the discrepancy was caused. This solution could have moral implications of Post Office changing branch data without informing the branch. When you were Security Operations Manager, were you aware that the Software Support Centre had remote access to the Horizon system? That they could remotely access the counter in a branch and alter the values?
I was aware they had remote access. I wasn't aware that they had the ability to amend any data in there.
Had you been aware, would this have been a cause for concern for you?
Yes, because you shouldn't be able to manipulate data.
So those are all the questions that I have for Ms Munro. Shall I turn to call participants, or was there anything you wish to ask at this stage?
No, let any co-participants representative ask any questions.
Mr Jacob has a question.
Thank you. I have a very brief follow-up question. You were asked about the receipts and mismatch issue notes. There was a meeting, and present at that meeting was Gareth Jenkins. Is that right? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you need to see the document?
Yes, please.
It is POL 000288838. And right at the top. Do you see his name there?
Yes.
And at paragraph 21 of your statement, you've already confirmed in your statement and your evidence that you were Penny Thomas's line manager.
That's correct.
And at paragraph 21 of your statement, you say, I believe Gareth Jenkins was the senior solution architect for the Horizon system. He assisted Penny Thomas in understanding the ARQ data she retrieved as part of the litigation support service, and you say you believe he was on occasion called as an expert witness.
That's correct.
And you've been taken to statements that Mr. Dunks gave in relation to that standard paragraph, and
Correct.
you're aware that Penny Thomas gave similar statements
Yes.
as well, are you? So you said in your evidence today that you weren't aware of this receipts and payments mismatch
No.
issue, and we can see from the document that it affected, I think, up to 40 branches. Was Mr. Jenkins part of the wider team then? He was assisting Penny Thomas, who you line managed. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
So, and you may not be able to answer this, it's likely, isn't it, do you think, that if Gareth Jenkins was present at this meeting, that when Miss Thomas gave witness statements using that standard paragraph in 2010, that she would have known about this because Mr. Jenkins was assisting her?
I can't answer that because I wouldn't know what
No. Okay.
Gareth and Penny discussed. He assisted her with the different witness statements and the data. Whether they discussed these issues, I wouldn't know.
Do you accept that Ms. Thomas in 2010 gave statements using those generic words about the Fujitsu system operating properly?
Yes, there is the standard template.
Yeah. Do you think, as her line manager, you ought to have known about these potential difficulties when Ms. Thomas was using that paragraph, effectively giving Horizon a clean bill of health and criminal prosecutions of sub-postmasters?
I think because we'd got Penny discussed most of her issues or concerns or questions around the systems and that service with the CISO and the account manager, then it was already at an escalated level. So I couldn't actually add any value in that way. So I think it was taken to that higher level rather because of the service that it's providing.
Okay, we're just trying to understand the structure. So you were her line manager.
Yes.
But in relation to the evidence that she gave and perhaps the veracity of the evidence that she gave, there was someone else who she was reporting to, is that right?
Yes, so she liaised closely with both the account manager and the CISO.
And a general question, and you may or may not be able to answer this, but having seen this and having been taken to the documents that you've been taken to today, do you consider that sub-postmasters were being prosecuted in circumstances where the post office, with Fujitsu's assistance, was misrepresenting the robustness and integrity of the Horizon system?
Based on what I've seen and read today, I would say yes.
Okay, well, I don't have any more questions for you. Thank you very much.
So there's a question from Ms. Patrick.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Miss Munro. My name is Miss Patrick. I represent, with Mr Maloney, a number of sub-postmasters who were prosecuted and convicted and who since have had their convictions overturned. I have one set of questions about one document, so I hope we'll be quite quick. The document is FUJ 00156-518. And if we can go to the bottom of page 1, we can see, can you see that that's been highlighted there, I think? There's an email there which starts, it's in January 2012, from Graham Brander to Penny Thomas and Andy Dunks. It says Penny, Andy, and there's a little back and forth, but essentially it's a message about attending trial. If we can scroll up a little, but you see that Andy, can you confirm if required, you're able to cover Penny's evidence in the case that she's unable to attend. If we can scroll up a little, please. We see the second message. And we see, hi Graham, thanks for the update. As far as standing in for Penny, I do not think my knowledge is good enough to be able to do this to the level that Penny could answer the questions. I would not be comfortable to do it. And if we scroll up again, we see the next message. And we see this is where your copy's in. Can you see that, Miss Munro? Mm-hmm. And Miss Thomas copies the message to you and says, Donna, it would appear you have a gaping hole as far as prosecution support is concerned. Andy being uncomfortable to support a basic statement and Raj not being prepared to submit one. Now, so looking at this, Miss Thomas is writing to you for your input, isn't she?
Yes.
And it appears your input is needed not just for matters of cover, but she's raising a substantive issue about what evidence the members of your team are qualified to give. Is that fair?
It's not raising what they're qualified to give, it's what they're comfortable to give.
Indeed. And there appears to be a hole in your team in terms of the prosecution support you're able to provide. Is that fair?
From what we're reading here, that could be assumed, yes.
So she's raising a gaping hole, and is that not an important gaping hole in prosecution support?
Yes.
What did you consider her intent to be when she was raising that with you?
She's bringing to light that individuals aren't happy to do the role that they've been employed to do.
And why would she be raising that with you? What did she want you to do?
Discuss with the individuals.
Okay. Now, I won't bring the document up. I've got a piece taken here from what Miss Sanga says in her witness statement. She said to the inquiry, I can see that in around September 2010, I was asked to provide a witness statement in relation to an ARQ request that I actioned. So separate occasion, but she's asked to provide evidence. She says, well, I can't recall if it was in relation to this ARQ request. I can recall speaking with Miss Munro and agreeing that all witness statement requests would be actioned by Miss Thomas and Mr Dunks, as they had more experience and knowledge of Horizon. Now, if we can look at this, if, as she suggests, you agreed that all witness statements should be actioned by Miss Thomas and Mr Dunks, does that not suggest you had a more active management role in litigation support than your statement perhaps would have suggested?
No, I managed the team and their workloads.
Okay, I have no further questions for you, Miss Munro.
Is that it, Ms. Price?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Munro, for providing a witness statement and coming to give evidence. That concludes today's proceedings, I believe, Ms. Price.
Yes, sir.
I hope that those core participants who were present have found at least some of the evidence informative. And I think we have Mr. Patterson tomorrow, do we not?
That's correct, sir.
All right, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you.